Let's smash it up on a Women's College World Series Monday alongside Ira Schofel, the managing editor of Warchant.com. My name is Tom Lang. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Monday Smash on Warchant TV. Hit that like button, subscribe to us, as we are going to be talking a lot about Florida State football for the hour. But, I mean, it's hard not to ignore the elephant in the room. Ira, Florida State is one win away from the best of three in the Women's College World Series, and first pitch is in just about an hour from now in Oklahoma City. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Excited about this game. It's been a cool tournament, it's been fun to watch. The fan base kind of rally around this team. I mean, I think part of it is the fact that obviously it's been a while since Florida State's put a high-profile winning product on the field. It's been since last football season. I mean, other sports have done well. Golf did well. Beach volleyball did well. Some other sports have done well, but baseball did not. Men's basketball did not. Women's basketball was solid, but not exceptional. And so I think people are hungry for a winner, and Florida State softball has been awesome. And so it's been cool to watch everybody kind of rally around this team.
The images from Oklahoma City are starting to leak in on Florida State's social media account. They're wearing the golds tonight, looking to close out this half of the bracket. If Florida State was to lose in its 7 p.m. tilt with Tennessee, they'd play again tonight. So hopefully it is not a late night at all, Ira. I know you're rooting for it. Everybody at Warchant is rooting for that. We'll have a game thread going on warchant.com for our subscribers at Warchant. Corey Clark is going to be holding it down in the game thread. I think some of us might pop in there from time to time as well. I know I will. So it's going to be an exciting night tonight. We'll see what the starting lineups are going to be and who Lonnie Alameda is going to put in the circle first tonight. That has not quite been released, but it wouldn't shock me, Ira, if they roll out another opener and maybe bring in Kat Sandercock a little bit later, just in case. If the opener keeps rolling, then those are pitches saved for a best of three against, surprise, surprise, Oklahoma, who made it after an extra innings win today over Stanford. Oklahoma is awaiting the winner of tonight in OKC. So that's the setup for tonight as it pertains to softball. We're going to be talking about football a whole lot this hour. It's hard not to think about that opening tilt against LSU on Sunday of Labor Day weekend. If you've got questions for us in the chat, feel free to fire away. We're just going to kick back and relax. It's a summertime Monday night. Ira, it's so weird to do this show not only at 6 o'clock, but in general, even if we did it at 7 or 8, the sun would kind of still be out. These are the days we dream of.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird situation because the softball game's at 7, so that's why we moved this up to 6. And on the one hand, it's like we talked before, it would be kind of cool, I guess, to do like a pregame show, but not everybody watches our shows live. So it would be dated if we did like a pregame show, just talking all about softball. And then whatever happens with softball, whether they win quickly in the first game or it goes to 2 games, it's exciting. It would date all this. So we're going to talk a little bit about that if people have questions, but mostly, like you said, we'll talk about football and some big picture topics. Baseball has obviously had a big week with all the transfers. They got another transfer last night. Your boy Al Leiter's nephew.
Oh, man.
Cameron Leiter.
So my first ever Mets game at Shea Stadium was in 99 or 2000. I'd have to go look at the ticket stub. But it's Al Leiter was on the hill against the Cardinals. Nice. If he made his way, Ira, to Tallahassee, I would fanboy it for about 10 seconds just to maybe get the ticket stub signed or something.
Didn't he do some TV for a while?
Sure.
I feel like I heard him doing some, maybe even college games.
I think he might have cut his teeth in college, but
right.
He's also been on Yes Network for the Yankees and
Gotcha.
MLB Network. But yeah, he's definitely been an analyst. He's a weird guy. He's a really weird personality, which is more interesting. I'm not saying that the softball team is weird, but they're just so energetic and bubbly. It makes it all the more interesting and fun to be rooting for that lineup 1 through 9. That's the way that guy was. And if Link Jarrett wants to keep poaching all the best players from UCF, I say absolutely have at it, dude. It's unbelievable what Link has been doing the last week and a half. We knew that they would flip the roster, Ira, but these announcements, it seems like, come out every 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, he had a good run, like you said, late last week. And, I think probably the marquee guy so far was Drew Furrow, Adam Furrow's son. Tallahassee kid, did not come to Florida State out of high school, went to UCF. And, it kind of worked out perfectly for Florida State. Greg Lovelady, the coach at UCF, got fired after the season. So a bunch of kids went in the portal, and a lot of those are guys that Florida State kind of either had connections with or they're in-state kids. And Florida State, is obviously an attractive destination right now because there's jobs open. I think the 2 pitchers, Al Leiter's nephew, Cam Leiter, is pretty impressive, man. His ERA is like 4.75, something like that. It's around 5, which isn't super impressive, but the strikeouts will play. It's 80 strikeouts in like 50 something innings. And he really came on it seemed like in the latter half of his freshman year, which is kind of the opposite of what you expect. You usually expect freshmen to hit a wall. He actually pitched really well later in the season. And then, Drew Farreau, I think 15 home runs as a freshman. He's going up to the Cape, middle infielder. So, and then they got 3 other guys as well. So yeah, there's a lot more work to do, but it's good to see Link Jarrett starting to put some pieces into place.
Our Wilmer in the house with a lot of other people here in the Warchant chat. Do us a favor, throw that like underneath the video, and what's up to everybody. And Spartanol, I see your request. I will check as soon as this show is over. But yes, Link Jarrett's flipping the roster, and as he said before, his philosophy is when he goes and gets position players, he wants them to be specific to a position. So you'll see as that flip happens, what South Carolina has been to the Florida State football program through the transfer portal, UCF apparently is going to be for the baseball program. So we will monitor that in the latest for you at warchant.com. Another feature that's coming up on the channel and on the website, this is something that goes way back on warchant.com. I believe they call it the OG Top 40, Ira. Is that what this is?
It is the original Top 40. There's been a lot of other Top 40s that have been sprouting up over the last 5 or 7 years. But yeah, Warchant, Gene started doing the Top 40. Man, it feels like it's close to 15 years ago. It's been a long time. And in fact, there were times where when I left, I was at the Democrat, and he kept doing it, and different people have been a part of it throughout the years. Even Jeff, before he was part of Warchant. I'm not sure if you did it before you were at Warchant or not, but
we went to the whiteboard together at ESPN, and
right.
we moved stuff around like we were 2 detectives trying to crack a case. Yeah.
And but yeah, so then now that we've been back and our staff has expanded, we've got a big panel of opinions, and it's cool. It's fun to look back. Aslan actually texted Corey and I the list of last year's top 40 votes, and it's always funny to kind of look back and see what you thought going into a year. And it's again, our definition is the 40 most impactful players, not necessarily the 40 most talented players or in order, or the 40 best players, or the guys that we think it's the players we think are going to have the biggest impact on this team. So position plays a part. And, I think one thing, and we're not going to give away our list yet. Gene's compiling them all right now, but it was tough this year. It's been tough in recent years to find 40 good players. This year it was tough. I mean, I cut 10 guys that I think are going to be impactful players, at least 10, right?
Yeah. Well, I usually send this note in the email to Gene. If there's a glaring omission, please let me know. And typically in the last 5 years, or however many years I've been doing it now, 2 or 3, you don't have to worry about that. You're going to remember who the good players are. Like, that's not a concern. But this could be, oh my God, I forgot about this receiver, or this guy, at defensive back could be somebody that figures in that rotation. Are you sure, Tom, that you don't want him to be rated at all? But
what did you do at receiver? I mean, we're not going to give away our picks, but the receiver situation to me is fascinating, because you've got, I mean, obviously Johnny Wilson's got to be at the top of the list, but then you bring in Keon Coleman, and then you bring in, Kentron Portier had the year he did last year. Darian Williamson shown a ton of potential, but hasn't really been healthy. Winston Wright coming back from the injury still. You've got Vandrevius Jacobs, Hakeem Williams. You also brought in Destin Hills now here after 2 years. So it's just that position I feel like a lot of those guys need to be in the top 40, but it's in the Ja'Kai Douglas. It's going to be tricky to figure out how you lay those guys out.
Not all of those names made the top 40. I only had 2 receivers in the top 20, I think. I'm looking through it right now quickly. But yeah, only 2. And you can guess the 2. One's a transfer from this year, one's a transfer from last year out of the state of Arizona. But sorting out where they go from there at receiver, you almost have to fit the position and the skill set type more than the experience. Sorry, Kentron, but I think that's what happens when Keon Coleman comes to the fold. I don't know that Kentron profiles naturally to the slot.
Do you have Jaheim or Keon higher?
I have Jaheim higher. I do. Do you?
I think I do, but they might be back to back.
Okay, let me ask you this. It doesn't reveal everything, and it's 40 people, so people would have to be really on it to keep all these notes in an order. Yeah. But who did you have as the second tight end behind Jaheim?
Mark Houston.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. It's just that he's going to have to be on the field more, right? For more variety of what they do. I would think that he's more multifaceted. Let me ask you this general question. Defensive tackles. How many of them did you have?
Okay. A whole bunch of defensive tackles. I think I think I limited myself to 4. I think I tried to put like 5 or 6 in there, and I was like, "Wait, hey, relax, man. They can't play them all." Um, but I think at least 4, maybe 5.
I think I put 6, and I have to apologize to Daniel Lyons. I just couldn't put you
Yeah.
in there. I couldn't get you in the mix, Daniel. But a lot more defensive tackles than defensive ends. I didn't have a whole lot of guys in the secondary. All right, that's the hardest one to pick because there are a couple of players that you're counting on based on reputation. Fentrell Cypress being one of them. But I don't know that I could rate him higher than, say, a Renardo Green, because Renardo has been steady Eddie and he knows this defense inside and out. So what do you do with that guy? And then at safety, Shaheem's got to be way up there, but there's going to be more players that are in the rotation. Akeem Dent is back. It is a mess this year. It's a pleasant mess, but you're really going to want to tune into the guys that just missed the cut segment, the 36 through 40 segment, because these are going to be either starters or primary reserves in the 2 deep. I don't know about you, Ira, but I look forward to being a part of the panel and hosting these particular videos because we are loaded up for the first time in a long time on the Warchant Top 40.
Yeah, and I think this is the challenge with this one. And Eric Angel asked me to put on the Orioles hat to compete with your Mets hat. I might have to do that. I'll see if I can get an assist here from the family. Yeah, no, I mean, the good thing is I don't feel like we're going to get totally embarrassed with our picks because, and one of the things we do when we post the top 40 is we'll, put the outliers, we put where everybody picked each player, but then we'll also put in some of the interesting outliers. Like if somebody had somebody in the top 10 and somebody else had him 40th or whatever. But I really don't think, other than leaving people out, like I don't think anybody's going to be embarrassed because there's just a lot of good players. And then it's just hard because like what you were just saying about the DBs, I think your and I lists are going to be pretty different because I have a lot of the DBs in that kind of 10 to 15 to 18 range. Like,
yeah.
Yeah, I think Renardo Green, Fentrell Cypress, I think is a Shaheem Brown. I think I have him in that range. So I think I have 3 of the secondary guys in that 10 to 17 or 18, somewhere in there.
My first defensive back is at 17. You believe that? It's going to be the bat bleep crazy list, I think.
You just can't. And the challenge is you can't. And then like, what do you do with the linebackers? I mean, and so then you get into the debating of like, okay, if the third best defensive tackle or fourth best defensive tackle might be one of your best 10 players, but is he more impactful than a starter who's going to be on the field all the time? And then, So we just you can talk yourself into circles.
You can. I got to 20 when I first did the list and I didn't have Deloach Bethune. And I said, stop. You've got to get them in and they've got to be somewhere near the top. One of these guys is going for 100 tackles if he's healthy. I get that Shaheem Brown's going to be close to the line of scrimmage, but there's going to be, as you've pointed out numerous times this offseason, they're going to be working with a lot of clean slates in front of them, clear paths to make plays in the backfield because the defensive interior rotation is so much better, Ira. These linebackers are going to be made to look better, and I think ditto for the secondary as well. The best friend of a second layer or third layer of a defense is the front layer being outstanding.
Right.
And so we should see some of those turnovers where you go, what the hell was the quarterback thinking? Well, what the quarterback was thinking is I don't have any time because this front four is just unbelievable, and I've got to make a decision now. And it hits the safety right in the chest. This is something that Adam Fuller talked about in spring. He wants to see the safeties finish on those plays. So I think the defense could be made to look better at linebacker and the secondary because of the defensive line. But good luck fitting that all into a top 40. I mean, it's freaking impossible.
I'm also curious, like, some specific questions. Because as I was doing it, I was thinking to myself, like, I wonder what everybody else is doing. Like, which one's your number 1 defensive tackle? Who are your top 2 offensive linemen? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to tell you this. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, I've got Maurice Smith higher than anybody else. Just because I think he means so much because of what we saw when he wasn't available, the snapping issues.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's pretty big impact. I don't know if he can move people as much as some of those other guys, but I damn sure know he's integral for that offense to operate.
I agree with you. I'm sure it's not as high as you have Maurice Smith, but he is my second offensive lineman. He's my second also.
Yeah.
I totally agree. That has been the number 1 concern I've had. I think they can be adequate to good at the, we're talking about different parts of college football, tier 1, tier 2. I think they can be adequate in tier 1 at linebacker and at defensive back this year. Not great. They might be better, but at minimum, they're adequate. If they lose Maurice Smith, that is a big concern. Like, to me, that is a bigger gap between first team and second team than maybe anywhere else on the roster right now, not named quarterback. Maurice Smith is very, very important. And Ira, he was low-key an MVP last year because he wasn't even, definitively going to play in the LSU game. For a while there, the coaching staff didn't think he was going to play in the LSU game. He never came out from that point on the rest of the season. And if he wasn't available, is it Darius Washington? I don't know what their option would be. It's just that they don't have much behind him right now.
Yeah, I think it's Darius Washington. I'll admit, every time I've driven past the practice fields at any time of day or night, and I've driven past and I didn't see Casey Roddick out there snapping a football, I was like, what's going on here? Like, I wanted to text Norvell and be like, hey, man, why is Casey Roddick not out there snapping a football? Yep. The sun is out. The lights are on. Get my man out there. But no, I think Darius is probably the option number 2. But, it would be cool if Casey Roddick could do that job because he's a big dude who can move people.
If Casey Roddick could snap the ball, how many spots higher would he be? Maybe that's a question that we can examine on the Warchant Top 40 as we do these breakdowns. I had to keep lowering him. I think he might be an answer at guard, but when Big Meech was, granted a waiver to come back for this season, Roddick's stock went down. If he comes out in fall practice, though, and he snaps well, my guess is you're going to read that in the observations. You're going to say, what a wonderful snaps today by Casey Roddick in full teamwork and 11 on 11. Just put that in a bookmark for something to look out for on warchant.com. And remember, everybody, we got specials galore right now on warchant.com in terms of joining the proper website. Our man Ben has put together a couple of graphics. We'll throw them up on the screen a little bit later. But suffice to say, there is another dollar deal back, and there's a 50% off deal. So we'll tell you more about those a little bit later in the show on Monday Smash. But here, really quickly, is this week's schedule on Warchant TV. You are here. You're on a Monday night with a Monday Smash. Look at that. Ben put our cartoon characters on the screen. That's cool. There's me and Ira at 6 o'clock on a Monday. Tomorrow, live, 1 p.m., Seminole Headlines here on Warchant TV. The 3 guys will be in the studio. I have confirmed independently and verified that Corey Clark is in town. So it'll be Ira, Jeff, and Corey from the 93.3 studios live tomorrow at 1 o'clock. On Wednesday, we've got a JCS from 1 to 3 as well as Thursday. But Wednesday night's live show this week is Wake Up Warchant Live with Aslan and Corey. On Friday, your boy Jeff is off for a birthday trip to New Orleans. Good for him. He's turning 67 years old, I believe.
He looks good for 67, though.
He does. He and Nick Saban, right?
Yeah.
But that's the rundown for this week. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell. You'll be alerted every time we go live. Yes, sir.
The one thing for people to keep an eye on, though, is assuming softball wins tonight and gets a win and goes into the WCWS Championship Series, then your boy's probably going to have to figure out a way to get to Oklahoma City. Ooh. And so that could possibly impact things for tomorrow for headlines. We're not sure, but it's just something we'll monitor. Hopefully we can work the travel around that.
If you were a wagering man, what are the odds? So it could be 1 and 3, 1 and 5 that you'll be flying out of Tallahassee. And then what's the over-under on layover count to get to Oklahoma City?
So it's I think Tallahassee, I think FSU fans are getting a little excited and maybe some other people booking the flights because in the last 24 hours, those flights tomorrow to OKC have really skyrocketed in price. So it's possible it may be out of Panama City. It's possible it may be could be possibly out of Jacksonville. So we'll see. But yesterday the flights were like $600. About an hour ago, flights were about $1,200 out of Tallahassee. So we'll see. We're monitoring the situation, Tom.
It's almost like they know at these companies. Right. It's almost like they know that when demand goes up, they could just absolutely railroad you. So that's what Ira has to face. Hopefully, after a victory tonight for Florida State, we'll keep you posted on that. Spartan Noles says, "Man up and drive." Yeah, we send Corey at that point, right, Ira? If you're just going to have a drive.
I tried over the weekend. He wasn't having it.
He wasn't having it. All right. What we're having here on Monday Smash is a good time. Thank you to the nearly couple hundred of you who are watching with us here on Warchant TV. As I said, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell. Every time we go live, you will be alerted that awesomeness is on Warchant TV. So, Ira, I will ask you one more question, if you don't mind, about the top 40. And we like to do this when we're at practice. This is a behind-the-scenes thing. We'll talk about players that are new in spring camp or fall camp, and we'll point to that player and say, that's my guy. Everybody picks their own. Sometimes there's overlap. I think you and I were co-founding members of the Rodney Hill fan club.
Up there.
Yeah, last year. Is there a guy that you just made sure was in a prominent place on the list or included in the top 40 because you're a believer in what he either is as a transfer or freshman, or that this breakthrough is coming for a certain player?
I think I'm gonna, and not necessarily a breakthrough, but I think another player I think I'm gonna have higher than other people is Destin Hill. I'm projecting Destin Hill. Does he make your top 40, Tom?
No. So he's on.
He's
Okay.
in my top 40. Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
So I'm excited, man. Just from what I've heard about, what how impressed they've been with him physically, and man, he's got that speed, and I don't know, man. I just have a feeling he's going to be an impactful player in that offense. And the thing about receiver is that his position you can play as a true freshman. It's not like, and I know he hasn't played football in a couple of years. I get all that. But I have a feeling he's going to have an impact in this team. I don't have him in my top 10 or top 20, but I do have him in my top 40. And my guess is a lot of people aren't going to do that.
That's interesting. So, I would say I'm not going to be the only one that has Vandravius Jacobs. And I know as a true freshman, that's a little bit different than somebody who has, developed more into his mature man weight and body like Destin Hill has now. I've got him fairly high, but I don't think I'm the person with him at the highest point on the list. So the guy who just made the cut for me at 40 was Quindarius Jones. I think, Ira, that looks like a very natural defensive back with a big rangy frame, and there might be some jobs that are open in the defensive back room, at least in that 2 deep, that maybe Quindarius could crack the rotation a little bit earlier. I know that's probably putting a lot on the plate of an early enrollee true freshman. It's just that dude is so smooth out there. It's hard not to see that, he's got the tools and what it's going to take in the near future.
Yeah, the freshman DBs both were impressive. I mean, he and KJ Kirkland were both impressive in the spring. And what's cool is, from talking to people around the program, they were actually probably a little bit more excited. Some people in the program were a little bit more excited about Conrad Hussey, who's coming in, and also the athlete. No, the other it starts with an E. I'll look it up here in a second.
Pop up in the chat.
But Edwin.
Yeah.
I can't remember his last name.
Joseph.
Yeah, Joseph. Some people I talked to actually like them as bigger impact players earlier in their careers than KJ and Quindarius. And KJ and Quindarius looked fantastic in the spring. So yeah, that group's got a lot of potential. But I don't know if I had either one of them in my top 40. And honestly, Ben threw in the chat. Ben threw in Keziah Holmes, and I don't think I had Keziah Holmes in there. I mean, it's tough, man. When you got Trey Benson and Toafili and Rodney Hill, and there's a lot of weapons to try to get for. I was like, Gene, can we expand it to the top 50 this year?
Yeah. No, you're correct. I couldn't fit a fourth running back in there.
Yeah.
And as much as I love Rodney Hill, I have Toafili higher than Rodney Hill by a significant margin because Toafili provides a whole lot. He's a Swiss Army knife, know. And Ira, that's actually a fascinating question to examine too. Is Trayshawn Ward and Trey Benson, when they were both healthy, they fit each other and complemented each other quite nicely. Trey is trying to be less patient. He's trying to be more downhill, or at least Coach Yak is getting on him about that. And he said, I think it was 400 yards that he left out there on the field by not being more decisive. But Toafili has already proven that he has flipped the switch from indecisive to somebody who will hit it quickly. And I think that's going to suit him very well as potentially the number 2, especially given that when he's on the field, you're going to have to think about multiple things that Lawrence Toafili can bring to the table. Would you say that you would agree that Toafili is far and away the number 2 right now, or is it going to be a close race?
Yeah, no, I'm up there too. I'm considerably higher than Rodney Hill, and I like Rodney Hill. We both like Rodney Hill a whole lot. Yep. But I think I've been more and more impressed by Toafili, like last season and then in the spring. And I think there was a point last season where we had the conversation that, he's gotten to where he's reliable running between the tackles, and that was something that was always a concern. There's been moments in his career, first year or two, where he just didn't show that. And he had some moments where he needed to, but kind of tried to pop things outside and got stopped for loss in some big situations. But yeah, man, he's bigger and stronger. He's not afraid to run, put his nose in there, run between tackles. And then he's got, the playmaking ability. So I think Rodney Hill's going to hit some big plays this year. I think a lot of guys are going to hit big plays this year. But yeah, I think Toafili, my guess is will have, I don't know, 20 to 30% more touches overall than Rodney Hill.
Yeah, he proved that he's not a running back who can catch. He's basically like a receiver with the
Right.
mechanics he has, the body control. I mean, there's just that's different. And when you're trying to put together a championship anything, you do need Swiss Army knife guys. That's why Jaheim Bell is such a great fit in this offense, the way it's run. He could do a whole lot of things. He did it he ran the ball at South Carolina. You could do a whole bunch of different things in Mike Norvell's offense if you've got a varied skill set. But I do want to circle back to one thing about the receivers. So if you were projecting, Ira, the third most productive receiver on Florida State's roster behind the obvious two, Johnny Wilson and Keon Coleman, am I probing correctly that Destin Hill might be in that conversation for you? Is that a little too much?
Yeah, I don't know if I for sure. It might be Kentron. I'm not exactly sure, but I do think, and that was tricky. I mean, like again, like I was more of a see it till I or believe it when I see it kind of observer with Kentron in the spring. But I thought what he did in the spring game, he obviously had a really good spring overall. But I thought the spring game was fantastic for him. And then, I think he's ready to emerge. And then, they've got some other nice weapons as well. But there's like the wild cards to me are, there's just a bunch of wild cards. You've got Winston Wright, where he is. I mean, he's a guy who caught 60 passes the last year he was healthy in college football. So that's a big time weapon. Then you've got Vandrevius Jacobs, so I thought was one of the stars of the spring. So it's tough to say, man. I just think it's probably going to be pretty balanced after those top two receivers. But I think there's a better chance Destin Hill's in that top 4 or 5 than he is outside of it.
That's a big statement. And I look forward to seeing that he exists in fall camp and watching him play and what his style looks like, because the film, is crazy from high school, but that's just so long ago.
Right.
And again, he didn't suffer the injury. And this is something else, folks. If you're just filing away notes for when you read practice observations, which aren't that far away, it's only a couple of months, Ira. We're going to get back to doing these. And that's a whole lot of fun. Number one was Casey Roddick looked great snapping the ball. That's something that you want to see in print. Another would be about the explosiveness of Winston Wright. If you read, Winston looked really fresh today. In 7-on-7, he did this. In 11-on-11, he did that. If we're reporting that Winston Wright looks explosive again, then that I think changes the conversation about what's possible offensively, because he would climb right to the top of the list. No pun intended.
Right. And I think we've been watching this steady progress. But I think we all agree there's got to be another gear, and it's just like waiting for that to come. And, they feel good enough about him physically to let him out there in practice. He took hits in the spring. We saw him physically get tackled. So we know there's no concern about whether or not he's, healthy and past the injury, but then it's just a matter of, okay, can you get that explosiveness back? And I think the coaches say they've seen it in bits and spurts. The one thing they have that we don't have access to is they actually have the GPS information. So they can tell exactly what mile per hour he's hitting. And he was here briefly before he got injured. So they should have some apples to apples comparisons. Okay, when he's wide open, he's at 20 miles an hour, 21 miles an hour, whatever it is. And so I'm sure they can tell kind of like how close he is to where he needs to be. But yeah, man, if he is that guy, again, man, like now you start looking at what you've got in the slot, you're looking at, what you've got out wide, what you've got at tight end, the backs you've got coming out of the backfield, man, it's could be a problem.
How quickly did it take you to just say Jordan Travis won and move on? Because I think for so many years, Ira, we were debating who number one was. It
was not even like it was literally like as I was going through the list, I was, putting names on the top and putting names in the bottom, and putting names in the middle, and kind of juggling around. And when I saw Jordan's name on the roster, I just copy paste, put it up there, and there was no question at all. I mean, he's it, man. Like it's cool that he's not. I mean, the quarterbacks are always going to be weighted pretty high. I mean, I think DeAndre Francois was probably number one at some point in his career, but going into 2017 maybe. But this guy in this offense, I mean, yeah, he's one with a bullet. And then, I think the top 4, top 5, I bet we all have the top 5 guys kind of in the same. We probably all have the same 5 guys or in the ballpark of the same 5 guys, but it'll be interesting to see who's got who 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see about defensive tackle too. I know our pal Jeff is big on Daryl Jackson, and we'll answer that question because we're going to get that. It's the new Destin Hill question, everybody. It's Daryl
Yeah.
Jackson's waiver. It's from Eric Angel, who also is moonlighting as EricSpedia.com because he says there's a $727 flight from Jacksonville to Oklahoma City through ATL tomorrow. Just to let you know. So
Appreciate it, Eric.
he's your booking agent, but we're going to get this question
Yeah.
until the NCAA answers for once and for all, and that's Daryl Jackson's waiver.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say on that is, from talking to people at FSU, the last I heard, which was very recently, they still don't have an answer on that. Last I heard, somebody I was talking to in the administration was like, look, this is the case textbook example of why a kid should get it. He did come back home. His mother is in the area. She does have an illness. He wanted to be back home. It's not like he transferred to Tennessee. It's not like he wanted to transfer to Cal. He transferred to Florida State because he's close to his mother and she has an illness. So Florida State people feel like it should be pretty much open and shut. Nothing with the NCAA is ever open and shut. There's a lot of bureaucracy. Those committees that evaluate that, it's not like they're looking at these things every day and every night. So there's a schedule that they go by. And at some point, you'd like to think that they're going to give him an answer. And I think it'll be soon. But, you can't say for sure. I do think, again, the people I've talked to at Florida State, if he doesn't get it, they'll be pretty irritated. And my guess is they will see if there's anything else they can do to fight it because they feel like he is an example of definitely this isn't one where they're trying to get one over on the NCAA. Yeah. They feel like he should definitely get it.
But just like everything else with the NCAA, they take their own time and they keep their own counsel. So stay tuned. Again, Florida State has been confident throughout. When that news happens, it's just kind of an exhale, and then you move forward because that rotation is going to be a terror, especially if Daryl Jackson is in the mix.
But I have real quick because you were kind of tiptoeing around it. I've got Fabo as my top D10.
Okay, I do as well. Because of the uncertainty and because of the inconsistency. I think Fabian's going to be a more consistent player. Daryl can prove me wrong, and if he does, then it's going to be a fun discussion. But Fabian Love
really
has to be. Yeah, go ahead.
And you just hope he's healthy. If he can stay healthy, because last year, man, he could have had a huge year. The way he played against LSU, it was ridiculous.
Yeah, carrying two offensive linemen and then making a stop when LSU was in the red zone early in that game. When you see moments like that, you think, what if he was healthy for the 3-game stretch, Ira? How high could have Florida State climbed? Because they were getting run on consistently. Right. And now he's going to be a better version of himself because he's only playing however many snaps a game, 35, 40. It's so fun to break down. Guys, if you can see it in our eyes and hear it in our voices, it's because it's true. It's just, this is a breath of fresh air where 40 is not enough places to talk about all the things that are going to be good for Florida State on the field. Mastromano didn't even make the list. He's not going to be busy enough, Ira. I couldn't put him in there.
I think I put him in and then I dropped him back out. I put him in at 38-ish and then I dropped him back out. Sorry, Alex. You got to go back to the back of the line. There's too many other guys.
If he's one of your top 40 players, we got problems. Jordan got hurt or something, because he should be called upon for a coffin corner here or there. But there's not going to be a whole lot of work for Mastromano over the course of the 12 games. Maybe that first one in Orlando, if it's a little extra sloppy. But, if you're talking about a full slate and this offense, punter shouldn't be much of a concern at all. And, Ira, I'll ask you a question related to that. So last year, Corey wrote a piece on Warchant.com about the magic number of points and output per game that you need to, go where Florida State wants to go, 8-4, 9-3. I think it was 31.7, something like that. It was 31 points or so. This year's team, this year's offense, that schedule ain't murderer's row either. What do you think is a fair number to throw out there in terms of points per game output for Florida State on offense? For a couple of numbers' sakes, again, 31 is a watermark of being well over 500. And then that 2013 championship team for Florida State scored nearly 52 points per game. I don't think they're going that high, but how high can this offense go, do you think?
Definitely can be mid 40s. I really think, and again, I just, there's just, look, Mike Norvell, I felt like, the last year for sure, and really since they've been here, but definitely last year when Mike Norvell went back to calling plays, I felt like so many times the offense operated at a really high level. For a big part of it was his play calling, the design of the plays, the construction of the offense, the work they did with the offensive line, the blocking schemes. There was a lot of things they schemed up and to have successful drives. But now, man, they just have so many guys that I think can be game breakers
Yep.
that you're not going to have to work for every yard. You don't have to. And I remember Jimbo that was one of the things he used to say about running backs, that if I've got to scheme up every yard for you, you're not the right running back.
Yep.
And I think now, certainly in 2020 and 2021, especially because of the quarterback play, the coaching staff had to scheme up everything. They couldn't just rely on the quarterbacks and the receivers to make plays. They had to scheme it up. Now, and you're going to have guys making plays beyond the offense, just making spectacular plays. And so, yeah, man, I think it's going to be in the mid 40s. Now I say that it wouldn't shock me if there's a game where the offense isn't clicking, because that seems to always happen in college football. But I think from an average standpoint, yeah, I think it'll be in the mid 40s.
Well, the defense can help that too with more short fields, turnovers generated,
Right.
or getting off the field earlier. That's more possessions. Short fields, again, that's one thing that aided the 2013 team so greatly, was that the defense would outright score or put them in point blank range often. Think about the Clemson game. Part of the reason that's a blowout in 2013 is because you have a defensive touchdown and a couple of short fields because of turnovers. Yeah, Kayvon, nice.
Yeah.
That's a great suggestion.
A lot of other people are chiming in with mid 40s. I think maybe a 50-ish, but yeah, it's gonna be fun.
It will be. The other thing I'd say, Ira, when you're trying to rack up average totals, for point output, yardage output, all that stuff, when you have a second team offensive line that's not bad at all, that means that when your second team hits the field, they're going to be a problem too. If Rodney Hill is out there with Dre Jacobs and Hakeem Williams and Kyle Morlock and that second offensive line with Tate Rodemaker, I mean, that's a pretty good ACC offense, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was actually one of the reasons I kind of, going back to the top 40. I know that wasn't what you were going to, but where I kind of lowered maybe some of those guys like Roddick and Byers a little bit to some degree, and is because I don't feel like, it's not like one guy. It's not like they have to have this offensive lineman. Like last year, I think Dylan Givens was probably a top 5 type player because he was so important to what they have, and they just didn't have a lot of other options. Well, now you got a lot of other options. Like you mentioned, Dimitri Emmanuel is a really nice player, but if something happened to him, he missed a game or missed a half, you've got so many other guys that can get in there and play. So I think that kind of lowers a little bit of their importance. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100%. I mean, I think Tate certainly can put up points with those the second team offensive guys, and the offense will not come to a grinding halt. I mean, I think even probably to some degree last year, but definitely the year before, if you ever put in the backup offensive lineman maybe in garbage time, the offense really couldn't function. Well, it'll function now.
Yes, it will. You're right. Scarcity breeds value, and Florida State is not scarce anywhere but center, and we had that discussion a little earlier on the Monday Smash. Z-Chan from the top rope, the official DMD of Warchant TV. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Zach. We'll be seeing you at events not too far from now. He says every day is a countdown to kickoff, but what he asks, Ira, what's the number of points that have to be scored against LSU in your mind that would guarantee a win? What say you?
I would say, I'll say guarantees a win. I'm going to say 38.
Okay. That's
I mean,
close.
I don't, and that's not to say that I expect them to score 35, but I could see it. I mean, if that kid just makes a bunch of plays, and if something goes wrong, I could see them getting up to. I feel like I'd feel comfortable with anything over like 32, but I think 38 or higher, I think I'd say I'd guarantee it. What about you?
I think that's the right answer. 35 was where my mind went first, but guarantee is a tough threshold, man. This is not. I feel good about it. I feel really. No, you guarantee a win. I mean, good God, if LSU scores 38 points, what are we doing here? I mean, that would have to be turnovers. That defensive. I mean, the whole defensive line got hurt in camp.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. They're going to win first down a whole hell of a lot more, Ira. They're going to win first down, which is just so critical. Yeah, Daniels is going to make plays on 3rd and forever, and you're just going to have to tip your cap. But can he make enough to score 38 points? My God, that'd be a tough watch. And it'll be a tough post-game show to do after, if that's the case as well.
Good. Well, let me ask you this, though. So, is there, because of how important that game is, that game is so important for Florida State to win that game. If they win it, and it doesn't go well defensively, but you still win the game. How? What do you think the emotions would be? Well, after that game, like that night, like if you do win it 41-37 or 38,
Yeah.
like it means so much, and you'll be on top of the world. But well, how much will that be tempered by what you saw defensively?
So I think, assuming also no overtime, I know that's what you're implying as well. There's no overtime for that final score. I think it's bliss until the next business day, which would be Tuesday. And at that point, it's like, now what the hell's going on Tuesday? But I don't think, because it's a get out of jail free card for the college football playoff.
Right.
I think it is with the committee, and
Yeah.
I think you would agree, right? Yeah. So because of that, I think that the fan base would be elated. And for example, I'll use the post game show. I think the calls would be 95% positive, and then the 5% before they hang up the phone would be, now we got to work on that defense now. We don't have to do that much, but I think it's 95-5. And then by the time you get to Tuesday or Wednesday of that Labor Day week ahead of the Southern Miss game, I think it rises to the surface of, well, what the hell, guys? Is it that Daniels is that good, or
Right.
do we have major issues here because there are more important games to be played? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's what it would be. And I mean, there's always going to be some people who are going to harp on the negative, but I do think the it's such an important game that to me it's like one of those games where, man, like at the end of a season, like in a bowl game, when you win, it doesn't really matter how you won, and you won the game, like because there's no more games to worry about because this game is so big, and because it's like you said, it's like get out of jail free card. I mean, it kind of puts you on such smooth sailing, takes a lot of the pressure off of that Clemson game a few weeks later. That yeah, I think the elation would be off the charts. Plus, you would have swept LSU back to back years. I mean, there's just so many reasons it would be good. But yeah, I mean, the people want to see a better defense, and it should be a better defense. Well, we talked about it. I mean, and I'm not making excuses for this defense. I think it's going to be a good defense. I think it would have been a better defense last year if they stayed healthy up front. That didn't happen though.
Yeah.
But you would think in a season opener, if you're healthy up front, as much experience as you have in the secondary,
Yep.
two fifth-year senior linebackers, there's no excuse for you to give up 38 points or more in that game. So you'd like to think that's not going to happen.
I'm just so fascinated to see how this offense attacks two figures. One in Mason Smith, who went down early in the game last year against FSU, who anchors that defensive line in the middle for the Tigers, and then Harold Perkins, who developed into this other thing as his freshman season went on. How does Florida State attack the middle of LSU's defense? That's going to be really fascinating. There's no doubt they've got the weapons to do it.
Right.
And Ira, I think that, obviously for the 12-game slate, Florida State's going to have the better quarterback in all 12 games. I mean, I don't know that there's that much of a debate. The biggest debate would be what, week one? I mean, this game against LSU. So when you have the better offensive weapons, the variety of them, and you have that quarterback, I like your chances. But Harold Perkins is a freak. So
he is. The one thing I'd say about him though, and I didn't watch enough LSU after that game. I mean, I watched some, and I know I'm aware of what he did. But one of the things I like about Atkins and Norvell as the offensive play callers mindset is I don't really sense a lot of ego. Like there's not okay, we're going to do what we do and we're not worried about you. I think they are very aware of personnel, and they're very much aware of, okay, we're not going to ask. And this is a criticism I had of Willie Taggart and even Kendall Briles to a degree when Kendall Briles was the offensive coordinator. There were times where they were asking those offensive tackles to block good pass rushers by themselves on an island. And like they were not capable of doing that. Miami game where they, the only way you couldn't lose that game was for DeAndre Francois to get a strip sack. So I think one of the things I really like about this staff is they don't ask these linemen to do things that they usually can't do. So I think they're going to give Harold Perkins plenty of attention, and then also scheme around him and figure out ways to neutralize him.
That goes all the way back to Florida State and NC State. It was Jimbo Fisher's final year, I think it was. But remember, Coach Trickett had said that they're going to pay all this attention to Bradley Chubb, and they're going to chip him, they're going to double him. And then the whole game goes by, and they did nothing at all. It was one-on-one the whole game, and
he lived in the backfield.
And he spits on the logo in the middle of the field. Great. That's wonderful. What a great day. In the last 15 minutes here at Monday Smash, we want to answer your questions. I'm going to start with one from Zyler. I'm going to pick this one, Director Ben. Did a kicker make the top 40 list? And if so, which one? Ira, did a kicker make the list for you?
Not my list. And I can't remember. I don't know if like 6 or 7 of us are really doing it. So maybe the other crew will be. I don't know who's going to win the job. That's not kicker shame. In fact, we were talking to Keith Cottrell the other day, and he feels strongly that we probably should have a kicker in there. I can't put it both in there, and
Yeah.
I don't know who's going to win the job, so I didn't put one.
Yeah, I can understand the argument, Keith and others who were saying those first 4 games, 2 of them could come down to a kick. So therefore, a player must appear in the top 40. Kicker didn't sniff my top 40, Ira, for that reason. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't. You just are you supposed to put kicker and then just not put who it is? It's like at 36, kicker. You can't do that. So Zyler, that's the answer to that question. Honestly, I said this today on the JCS. Maybe you would agree with this, Ira. If you don't, let me know. But if you didn't watch all of spring practice and you just saw the way Fitz ended the season, I don't think you'd be that worried he righted the ship. But then if you did watch spring practice like we did, it wasn't consistent. I think that's, at least from my perspective, I felt better after the Oklahoma game than I did after spring about where he was going and righting the ship.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is, and something that I heard a little bit around the team was that there were some execution issues in the hold and the snap, and it wasn't always like I know there was one day in particular where Corey made a big deal in our practice write up about Fitzgerald kind of sculling a kick, a field goal opportunity that just didn't even look like a college place kicker, and it turned out from what we heard later that the hold was bad. And so that's the kind of stuff it's hard to equate. But yeah, to your point, yeah, I didn't like there was never a stretch of like a week or 10 days during the spring where I felt like, okay, they're fine at kicker. At the same time, what did you make of John Papuchis' comments? Because he's never seemed to be over concerned. And
Yeah.
he even said, I think he said after the spring game or around then, that there's really only one bad day. So I don't know. I don't know how to kind of reconcile that.
I think John, as a leader, is very steady. He wants that steadying
That's
presence,
fair.
because they had some issues. And they've had many issues. What am I
Yeah.
saying? In special teams since he's gotten here, kick returns being one of them. Punt returns was solidified last year by Micah Pittman, and that's something we'll have to solve. But even when it was the darkest and guys were running 7.5 40-yard dashes coming out of the end zone, he was. I mean,
No, you're right. You're right. He's not gonna roll those guys. You're right.
no, and that's the sign of a good leader. But yeah, sometimes there can still be the problem, even if the quotes
Yeah.
from the podium are steady.
I just to kind of give people as accurate as a presentation as we can. It was never alarming
Right.
in the spring, but it was never, oh man, it's good. Like this is good with either place kicker. I never felt like either one of them. Okay, this is solved. We can move on to other issues.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how they look in the fall. But I did want to throw out the caveat that there's 3 pieces to that combination, and we don't always know how it's all working.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair to point out. And Keltner, I think, has the stronger leg, but they were both up and down. It wasn't, if you can hit 40 and in with relative consistency, I think that's plenty for this team. Like Norvell will go for it. I mean, we already know that, but I think 40 and in is a fair goal. James B. from the top rope. Thank you so much, James B. He's asking about softball as we are within 10 minutes
Sweet.
of softball. He says, as a fellow Coaches Club member, do you think Lonnie will start someone else in the circle tonight other than Kat? Well, James B., I cheated because she is starting somebody different than Kat. It is going to be Mac Leonard as an opener for Florida State tonight. I see that on the official. They haven't, I don't think, released the lineup on social, but I see it on the internal stat broadcast, as they call it, from Oklahoma City. So it's Mac Leonard as the opener. James B., I'll answer it honestly. I would have expected an opener. You potentially could be managing 2 games tonight. You could be coaching 2 games tonight. And every bullet that you can save for Kat, either in the short term or the long term, I think is worth the investment. She already did it last night when Florida State was not assured a place in the semifinal when McKenna Reed started. So, she did remark, Lonnie Alameda did. You can catch their press conferences here on Warchant TV. Lonnie Alameda said after the game was over that this is great for a freshman's experience, and we also knew that we were trying to steal some outs. So I think that's what's going on again tonight, Ira.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about thanks a lot, James. Really appreciate it. And James came back and said he thought Mac, because she started so well last time, it made sense. The one thing I would say is, like, I think Mac makes perfect sense for a couple reasons. Number one, I love the way she's been pitching lately. Like James said, she has been pitching awesome. Not only pitching well, but pitching with some swagger. Like she's feeling it out there. You can tell she's got a lot of confidence right now. Um, and I think the difference between her and McKenna, though, the only caveat I would throw out there is caveats my words tonight for some reason. But McKenna probably had no pressure because she knew Kat was going to come in. Like there was never I don't think McKenna Reed ever went into that game thinking, "Oh, I've got to win this game," or "I've got to go long." And I'm not saying that that it'll be the same. I'm not saying that it would be the same thing tonight, but I do think, again, like you could feel maybe some nerves. You have to win one game, and it would be ideal to not have to bring her in, not have to bring Sandra Cock in. So there might be a little bit in the first game because in case you do have that second game. So I could see a little bit of nerves in this one, but again, I think you go to Sandra Cock pretty quickly unless something crazy happened where you got down 3 runs. Now I think you have a decision to make about what you think you can score in that first game because you don't want to use Sandra Cock in a losing effort and go 4 or 5 innings and then have to turn around and play again.
Agreed. That's the beautiful thing about softball is that, you can make that decision really quickly. And if you decide that, I'm going to think better of it, you just put the player back in short order.
Right.
It's not like baseball where once they're done for the night. Again, Florida State trying to avoid playing 2 games tonight. First pitch coming up in just over 5 minutes. That'll be on ESPN of the second semifinal. Oklahoma is awaiting the winner of Florida State and Tennessee. Point blank, if Florida State wins once tonight, 1 game, they are moving on. Tennessee has to win 2 in a row in order to be in that final best of 3. And here are the lineups, as you can see on Monday Smash. If you're listening on the podcast, just know that it's Mac Leonard throwing for Florida State, and Peyton Gottschall, one of Tennessee's 2 aces, is going for the Lady Volunteers.
Yeah, and and again, Mac, I think has been so good lately, and I think man, I have a feeling she'll pitch well because she has been pitching really well. And the other nice thing about this game, I think it's a good thing that they're playing such a good team. Like Tennessee, I think is like 51-9.
Yes.
So it's not like you're playing a team that you should beat, and if somehow they hang around, maybe now you feel a little bit of pressure. I mean, this is a team they know they got to play their best game. They've got to play their best game to beat them. And and if something doesn't go well, they do have that option of winning the second game. But that's a good team, man. Like they're legit. Tennessee is legit, and should give them a lot of confidence if they can get this done in 1 win.
Yeah, positive vibes only, but it wouldn't be a stunner if Tennessee put together 2 efforts that were worthy of wins tonight back to back because they are that good. So, Ira, last thing we'll talk about before sending it off to everybody to watch and enjoy the games tonight will be about Saturday's performance and some of the mistakes that were made on the base pass, a couple of interesting decisions or outright errors in the field. I think it was good for Florida State to get that out of their system because they probably can't afford to do that again.
Yeah, man, that was curious. The one that I think the most glaring is one of the players who's been just so rock steady forever is Kaylee Mudge. I mean, like she's so good, and it was almost like she just fell asleep there on that throw into second. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know if Coach Alameda talked about it or not, but I don't think she did in the post game. But that was bizarre, and then a couple other things like you said as well. But yeah, man, I just feel like you're going to get the best effort. This is going to be awesome, man. I really think this. I'm not hyping up this game because we don't get anything out of people going to watch it, but I just think this game is going to be so much fun. These 2 games, if they have to play 2 games, just because I think it's a great matchup. I felt like earlier in the week, I started to feel like maybe Oklahoma and Florida State were the clear class of this tournament, and they probably are, but Tennessee's right there. And so these being the last 3 teams standing makes sense.
Yeah, I've seen some talk on social that, perhaps the coaching moment there is to allow the run to score. If they do, no big deal because it's the second run that counts the most. You still wouldn't lollipop one into second base in that situation, Ira.
Yeah. It was a non-competitive throw. Why would you not? There's no benefit to doing that.
And the runner is stopped. If you fire it in there, the runner may stay right at third base, and you got first and third in that situation.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is like maybe she had it in her mind that the runner was going to go, and I'm not going to make that throw because like you said, but there's a difference between knowing they're going to score and not making the throw, or knowing you're not going to make that throw versus just making a non-competitive throw into second base. Anyway, but she's been awesome. She's incredible. I'm not going to beat her up, but it was weird because she's so smart.
Yep. and then getting doubled off a little bit later reminded me of
Yeah.
some of the recent baseball teams. It's like, what the hell? The Waycaster situation was there's nothing you could do there. The center fielder catches the ball, it
Right.
pops out on the ground. I don't, for not advancing to third base, I don't blame anybody there. That looks like a catch. It looked more like a catch than that on the transfer call they made in the ACC tournament for Duke. That's for sure.
That's what. Yeah, we were with a few of us watching the game together, and that was the quick conversation. Everybody turned automatically to that Duke catch.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been 3 outs worth, I think, by that umpire's estimation. Game's over. Washington wins. Look at that. One hell of a play. Coming up on warchant.com in the very near future, Ira has a piece on Florida State's offensive line and how they got so good and how they work behind the scenes. Ira, you want to talk about that a little bit before we sign off?
Yeah, I've got a story that should be. I'm hoping it'll be up on the website in the morning. Kind of may depend a little bit about how late things go tonight with softball, but it'll be coming up pretty soon. About Alex Atkins and Gabe Fertitta, who's a senior analyst on offense, and also Cooper Williams, who's a graduate assistant coach on the offensive line. And those 3 guys basically, and if you follow Alex Atkins on social media, you've seen him tweet a lot of praise to those guys. Anytime Alex Atkins gets an award, he heaps a lot of praise on those 2 guys, Gabe Fertitta and Cooper Williams, because they work so closely together. And so the story is basically about their relationship, how they came together, how they divide their roles, how they work together and complement each other. And it's really cool. I think it's just a cool story, not my writing, but just a cool story. And I really appreciate them talking to me about it, and I look forward to sharing that with readers. So yeah, check it out. It should be up hopefully in the morning, but definitely pretty soon. And I think it'll be enlightening, and I think it'll give you respect for not their acumen, but just how well they work together and how much they like each other, and in the personal side of it. I think it's a pretty cool story.
It's okay to say. Your writing's cool. It's all right. Allow me to say that at least. Spartanol says, get on the road, Ira. What are you waiting for? Get on the road. Stream the game because you're going to be going to OKC. We will see if that's the case for Florida State. That broadcast starts right now on ESPN, so we'll sign off. You saw the specials, but for you podcasters that are listening right now, 50% off your annual membership to warchant.com. 50% off. It's for new subscribers only, but join the family. Thank you for giving us a shot on the pod here on Warchant TV. This is your time. There's a $1 deal through the beginning of fall camp, but you want the 50% off annual because this is going to be a season to remember. So please allow us the shot to earn your FSU business moving forward at warchant.com. We would be honored if you would give us a try there, and make sure to like this video on the way out. Subscribe to Warchant TV. It's absolutely free, and we will have a live show for you at 1 o'clock tomorrow. This week, Wake Up Warchant will keep you apprised on all the big happenings. They're live on Wednesday night, but we'll have reaction on the channel too from FSU softball, hopefully moving on to the best of 3.
Yeah, so, I think your boys are going to be doing a podcast tonight around, well, hopefully early. Hopefully it'll be about 9 or 9:30, but it might be a little bit later than that if they have to go to 2 games. But yeah, they'll be doing a podcast so you can listen to in the morning.
There you go. By Corey standards, I believe that's the early bird special time for dinner at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Recording of Wake Up Warchant. For Ira, I am Tom. We keep you connected all the way on warchant.com and Warchant TV. Give us a like, give us a listen, and give us a view. We'll talk to you next time on Warchant TV. And thank you also, of course, to Z-Chan, to James B., and, of course, our director, Ben, behind the scenes. Good night, everybody.